just step back for a second. I believe it was in the either late 80s or early 90s when this new television network, Fox, came on the scene. And they were the fourth wheel in media. We had ABC, CBS, and NBC. And Fox started off their programming with a host of black shows. They did what the networks refused to do, and to showcase black folk on a regular basis, because everybody likes to see themselves reflected in society. And it was on the back of black dollars that Fox grew into a powerhouse. One of their major revenue generators was a show called In Living Color. And that program was one of the most denigrating shows that I've seen in years, but it made stars out of Jim Carrey and several other people. I think even Jennifer Lopez.
Yes, sir. Jamie Foxx.
And Jamie Foxx, of course. And then the Wayans brothers, who had created that show, who were catching heat from the black community, from some of the negative depictions of black folk. They said, they blew it off, this is just comedy, and stopped taking it so seriously. But eventually what happened with that show is that the station began to demand more derogatory skits of black folk. And I believe first it was, you had several Wayans brothers who were on that show, and then their sister was on the show. And she objected to a skit that they wanted her to do, and they fired her. And then within a year or two later, the show was pulled, but after the damage was already done, after Fox had made a fortune. And then it has turned into this powerful source of negative propaganda through the Fox News Network. And they have been supported by right-wingers, and they are a voice of confusion, of hatred, of distortion, which so many people view as the right way for them to take back their country. So, what it speaks to is a phenomenon that we should be very familiar with, and that is that whenever Europeans are about to build something new, whether it's a nation, whether it's an economic system or television network, they typically rely on people who have no power and use them as an economic base to get a leg up. And once they get that leg up, they then take off into the stratosphere. And so, when we look at the news, when we look at the news, one of the things that we really have to be aware of is the fact that if you watch 10 o'clock news or 11 o'clock news, network news, you'll find that it's so formatted. You can change the dial and see reporters reporting on the same story at almost the same time, and it's the same narrative. And that's because many of the news agencies, the sources that have been gathering the news, have gone out of business. And there's only a handful of entities, of corporate entities, that are responsible for gathering knowledge and information and disseminating it into the public, or literally feeding it like pablum to the public. And most of what we are fed is nonsense, is garbage. So one of the things that it teaches any thinking person is that if you want to know what's happening in the world, you've got to begin to seek alternative means of information. And once you begin to do that, you'll see that the world is quite different than how it has been portrayed. And typically what happens when you do that is that you find that you're in a small group of people who see reality differently. And as a matter of fact, speaking of reality, this whole foray into reality television is another means of distracting people and drawing them into this falsely constructed reality that is the furthest thing from reality. But people give their time which they can never get back, to program after program after program, and they miss out on opportunities to develop their lives and begin to make something of themselves that will allow them to have a meaningful voice in the world.